in the headlines of this hour on VTV News. Vietnamese Prime Minister holds talks with a Russian president. And ample room remains for Vietnam-China trade and investment. In our world news, according to the Russian president, BRICS infrastructure is enough for cross-border payments.
Broadcasting from Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. VTV News starts right now.
Good morning. It is 8 a.m. local time in Hanoi and you're watching VTV News. I'm Huyen Tan with the top stories. Party General Secretary Tô Lâm presented the decision to assign Trần Cẩm Tú, Politburo member, Secretary of the 13th Party Central Committee and Chairman of the Committee's Inspection Commission, to take the position of the permanent member of the 13th Party Central Committee's Secretariat at a ceremony in Hanoi on Friday. The party chief expressed his hope that the new permanent member will promptly perform the new tasks, initially focusing on directing the Party Central Committee's office and relevant agencies in making preparations for the party congresses at all levels towards the 14th National Party Congress. And for his part, the new permanent member pledged to show a high sense of responsibility and political mettle, inheriting and promoting the experience of his predecessors to meet the increasingly high demands of the party and people. State President Lương Cường on Friday met with Senior Lieutenant General Zhang Yuxia, the Politburo member and Vice Chairman of the Central Military Commission of China, who is on a working visit to Vietnam. He affirmed Vietnam's commitment to deepening friendly, cooperative relations with China as a strategic priority. Vietnam fully supports China's efforts to achieve its second centenary goal, contributing to regional and global peace, stability, and development. The state president also praised the productive discussions between China's Central Military Commission and Vietnam's Ministry of National Defense, urging both countries' sides to enhance defense cooperation through regular delegation exchanges and stronger ties among the Navy, Coast Guard, and Border Protection Forces. Senior Lieutenant General Zhang affirmed China's commitment to deepening the friendship between the two parties, nations, and armies. Vietnamese Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính held talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin on the sidelines of the expanded BRICS summit in Kazan, Russia, on Thursday evening local time. The two leaders agree on the need for closer coordination to effectively advance in areas such as economy, trade, investment, and tourism, while also expanding into new fields such as renewable energy and infrastructure. Both sides expressed a desire to promote additional energy projects to meet their country's development needs, aligning with current trends in green growth and sustainable development. And in the near future, they agreed to focus on enhancing cooperation in technology transfer, human resource training, and developing a team of experts for Vietnam. Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính held several meetings with the chairman of the Eurasian Economic Commission Council (EEC), Cuban Foreign Minister, and Malaysian Minister of Economy on the sidelines of the expanded BRICS summit in Kazan City of Russia on Friday.
In a meeting with Chairman of the Eurasian Economic Commission Council Bakitson Sagintayev, the Prime Minister emphasized Vietnam's high regard for the EEC's role in promoting the effective implementation of the Vietnam-Eurasian Economic Union Free Trade Agreement. He highlighted that after nearly a decade of enforcement, the agreement has helped establish a solid framework for cooperation to deepen relations between Vietnam and the EAEU member states, bringing many tangible benefits to both sides. The chairman expressed delight at the increase in bilateral trade from $1.8 billion in 2021 to $6.8 billion in 2023 and showed the confidence that cooperation between Vietnam and the EAEU will continue to flourish. Both sides also agreed to further open markets, resolve trade barriers in a timely manner, and address challenges related to payment mechanisms, transportation, and the mobility of people and entrepreneurs.
In a meeting with the Cuban foreign minister, Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh stressed Vietnam's deep concern over the difficulties and challenges faced by the Cuban government and people in the context of the widespread power outages caused by recent storms. The Prime Minister suggested the two sides quickly implement the major outcomes of the Vietnamese Party General Secretary's Cuba visit in September. The Cuban foreign minister pledged to instruct the Cuban Ministry of Foreign Affairs to work more closely with Vietnam to materialize the visit's results, particularly in enhancing trade and investment cooperation, with a focus on agriculture and food security.
During a meeting with the head of the Malaysian delegation, Minister of Economy Rafizi Ramli, the Prime Minister congratulated Malaysia on assuming the role of ASEAN chair in 2025 and affirmed Vietnam's commitment to contributing to the success of ASEAN 2025. The Malaysian official noted that it is time for the two countries to strengthen cooperation, particularly in new areas such as energy transition, electronics manufacturing, and participation in production and supply chains. The two sides exchanged views on regional and international issues of mutual concern, including the East Sea, and agreed to enhance coordination and mutual support at multilateral forums.
And also on the sidelines of the summit, Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh had brief meetings with foreign leaders and heads of international organizations. More in the following.
Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh affirmed that Vietnam always treasures the traditional friendship and comprehensive partnership with Venezuela, at his meeting with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. The Vietnamese leader expressed his hope that the bilateral economic, trade, and investment ties will grow more intensively, for the sake of both countries' people. For his part, President Maduro suggested further cooperation between the United Socialist Party of Venezuela and the Communist Party of Vietnam. The two leaders noted with pleasure the positive development in their bilateral relationship and affirmed their determination to further enhance cooperation, making it more intensive, effective, and comprehensive.
Earlier on the same day, Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh had brief meetings with foreign leaders. Meeting South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa, the Vietnamese Prime Minister conveyed the Vietnamese state president's invitation to him to visit Vietnam. The South African leader accepted the invitation with pleasure. At the meeting with President Ilham Aliyev of Azerbaijan, the two leaders affirmed the commitment to deepening the traditional friendship between their countries, making it match the two sides' potential. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh and President of Kyrgyzstan Sadyr Japarov concurred in effectively implementing the free trade agreement between Vietnam and the Eurasian Economic Union. The Vietnamese leader and President of Tajikistan Emomali Rahman concurred to facilitate activities of investors from the two countries in each other's markets, and promote cooperation in potential areas such as agriculture, culture, and tourism.
At the meeting with President of Iran Masoud Pezeshkian, the two leaders agreed to continue facilitating business interactions and the export of the country's key products to each other's markets, while strengthening ties in finance and banking. At the meeting with President of the Republic of Congo Denis Sassou Nguesso, the leaders agreed to step up market information exchanges and seek cooperation opportunities in potential fields, particularly agriculture. At another meeting, Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh and United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres pledged to continue coordination in implementing the key outcomes of the Summit of the Future. Vietnam strongly supports the UN's central role in global governance.
Besides, the Prime Minister also had a meeting with Indonesian Foreign Minister Sugiono, during which the Vietnamese leader suggested the two sides further enhance their trade ties, striving to raise bilateral trade turnover to $18 billion. Talking to Thai Foreign Minister Maris Sangiampongsa, the Prime Minister expressed his hope to soon welcome his Thai counterpart, Paetongtarn Shinawatra, on an official visit to Vietnam and to co-chair the 4th Joint Cabinet meeting. At the meeting with Saudi Arabian Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan, Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh noted his hope that his upcoming visit to Saudi Arabia at the end of October will yield practical results.
And on Friday at noon, the Prime Minister and the Vietnamese delegation landed back in Hanoi, successfully concluding their trip to attend the BRICS Leaders Summit, with over 30 bilateral and multilateral activities completed in just 36 hours. Now moving on to other news, Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh hosted a meeting in Hanoi with Speaker of the Malaysian House of Representatives Tan Sri Dato Johari on Friday. The Prime Minister said that Vietnam and Malaysia should work harder to raise bilateral trade turnover to $18 billion and encourage businesses from both countries to expand investment in each other's markets, especially in new fields like the digital economy, green economy, and energy transition. He called on Malaysia to help Vietnam develop its halal industry and to sign a cooperation agreement in this field soon. Both sides agreed to work closely with each other and with other ASEAN countries to build a united ASEAN that strengthens internal cooperation and plays a central role in addressing regional issues. They were committed to ASEAN's common stance on the EC and pledged to continue coordination to promote the implementation of the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the EC and negotiate a substantive and effective Code of Conduct (COC) in line with international law and the 1982 UN clause. Deputy Prime Minister Trần Hồng Hà, head of the National Steering Committee on Illegal, Unreported and Unregulated IUU Fishing Prevention and Control, presided over a hybrid meeting with committee members, ministries, departments, and local authorities on Friday. He highlighted that while progress has been made in establishing a legal framework, installing monitoring equipment, and building a national fishery database, local-level implementation remains insufficient to fully meet the European Commission's recommendations from its fourth inspection last year. Ahead of the fifth inspection by the EC, the Deputy Prime Minister urged local authorities to coordinate relevant forces to intensify inspections and strictly manage the 3 no's for offshore shipping vessels, including unregistered, uninspected, and unlicensed, with a target completion date of November 20th. He also directed the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development to explore policies encouraging seafood processing and exporting companies to strengthen ties with fishermen, adhere to IUU standards, and reject products of unknown origin or that breach IUU regulations. Coming up next on VTV News. Ample room remains for Vietnam-China trade and investment. And Vietnam steps up measures to promote ethnic people's enrollment in social and health insurance programs. Welcome back to VTV News. Now, Typhoon Tami, after hitting Luzon in the Philippines with winds of up to 95 kilometers per hour, left 24 dead, 10 missing, and impacted over 2 million people. It has now strengthened in the EC and prompted the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development to convene an online meeting with 19 provinces and cities to prepare for the typhoon's landfall. 2 possible paths are anticipated, and in the first, the storm may move near the mainland before turning back to sea, bringing winds up to 100 kilometers per hour to coastal areas from Quảng Trị to Quảng Ngãi. In the second, it could move inland before veering back out, bringing stronger winds of up to 130 kilometers per hour and prolonged impacts. The storm's broad circulation and heavy rains expected from Saturday night through next Tuesday pose risk of landslides, coastal erosion, urban flooding, and river floods. Reservoirs are prepared to mitigate flooding, and response forces are focusing on critical areas. Bilateral trade between Vietnam and China has seen significant upward trends, with trade turnover of $150 billion recorded in the first 9 months of this year. A series of high-level visits between the two countries' leaders is expected to create favorable conditions for economic, trade and investment cooperation between the two countries.
China is Vietnam's largest export market for agricultural products in the first 9 months of this year. Agricultural imports from Vietnam account for about 1/5 of the total agricultural imports of the country from ASEAN nations. Durian and dragon fruits from Vietnam are loved by Chinese consumers. The two countries have officially signed 3 important protocols, paving the way for the export of fresh coconuts, frozen durians, and crocodiles to China.
China imports large quantities of fresh coconuts and frozen durians, primarily from other Southeast Asian countries. Now, Chinese consumers have another option for these products. We also hope that other Vietnamese agricultural products such as chili, custard apple, bird's nest, passion fruit, herbs, meat-based products, and more will soon be exported to China.
According to experts, the consensus reached during high-level visits will further promote substantive investment cooperation, while opening new areas for future cooperation.
Leaders of the two countries agreed on investments in the construction of highways in northern Vietnamese provinces and on promoting cooperation between Chinese and Vietnamese businesses. This is something we are eager to see.
The two countries also agreed to select reputable enterprises with advanced technology to invest in each other's countries. Trade between the two sides in new areas will also be promoted.
Chinese ambassador to Vietnam Phie believed that China's stable economy will have a positive impact on Vietnam's foreign trade activities. The stronger purchasing power of the Chinese market will create more opportunities for Vietnamese exports. Moreover, a new wave of Chinese investment will also bring opportunities for Vietnam to further integrate into the global supply chain.
Vietnam-China import-export turnover this year may reach or even exceed the target of $200 billion.
Now, by the end of September, Vietnam's rice exports reached 6.9 million tons, a 23% increase compared to the same period last year. And to strengthen competitiveness with major exporters like India, Vietnamese rice export enterprises must adjust strategies to maintain their market position. Notably, in October, a Vietnamese rice brand was successfully launched in Japan, marking it as the second Vietnamese rice brand to enter this high-standard market. To import Vietnamese rice into Japan, products must comply with stringent regulations, including pesticide residue limits across 624 criteria, verified through 3 inspection stages. However, after 2 successful importations, the entry process for rice products into the Japanese market becomes easier, with shortened procedural times. Vietnamese rice exports to Japan are expected to rise further in the coming months. Ethnic groups in mountainous regions are considered one of the poorest communities, as their per capita income is estimated at about 30% of what an average Vietnamese earns. Most ethnic people lack access to the internet, so they are not fully aware of the benefits that the government's policies on social and health insurance would provide to citizens. Therefore, many localities have implemented drastic measures to promote ethnic people's enrollment in social and health insurance programs. A report from Mường Lát District, Thanh Hóa Province.
Do Thị Vui's family is one of the poor households in Mường Lát District. She has participated in voluntary social insurance to receive survivorship benefits. So far, nearly 2,000 people have participated in compulsory social insurance, about 400 of them joining voluntary social insurance.
I spend a small amount of my monthly wages to pay for voluntary social insurance. My parents have participated in voluntary social insurance for 5 years.
Many ethnic people are not fully aware of the severe consequences of untreated diseases, as they never go to hospital for treatment due to a long-held belief that illness involves evil spirits and fates. Therefore, participation rates in social insurance and health insurance in ethnic communities remain very low. To help ethnic people change their lives, the government has provided free health insurance specifically for poor families in particularly difficult villages and communes of Mường Lát district.
Health workers are very kind and supportive as they take care of me with all their heart. I was provided 100% insurance coverage for medical treatment.
The government provide 100% coverage for eligible patients with rare and serious illnesses. In addition, the quality of healthcare services has improved in district-level hospitals. Ethnic people have been raised their awareness about their health conditions and where to get the right treatment.
Those who participate in social insurance will receive huge benefits when they retire, as they are entitled to a monthly pension and lifelong health insurance coverage. This way, they will reduce the burden of caring for other family members as they are not dependent on their children.
Social and health insurance are core pillars of Vietnam's social security system, as they contributed to the effective implementation of equity and social progress, thereby maintaining political and social security and ensuring national defense in border areas.
The Celebrity Millennium cruise ship of the U.S. Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines docked at a Thai port on Friday morning, carrying over 2,000 passengers and nearly 1,000 crew members. So far this year, Thừa Thiên Huế province has welcomed 41 cruise ships at this port, hosting over 90,000 passengers and crew members. And for the next year, 42 cruise ships have already registered to dock at a Thai port, expected to bring nearly 80,000 visitors and crew to Huế and other central provinces of Vietnam. To mark this occasion, the province inaugurated the Thai Port Tourist Information and Support Center. This center offers passengers tourism service information and essential advice to ensure a pleasant experience. It also showcases and promotes Hué's signature products, highlighting the city's culture and image. Coming up next in our world news. According to the Russian president, BRICS infrastructure is enough for cross-border payments. And 3 Lebanese journalists killed in Israeli airstrike. Now moving on to our world news, cross-border payments for trade between BRICS countries are experiencing problems, but there are no plans to create a special system because the existing infrastructure is sufficient, Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Thursday in a Russian-hosted summit of the BRICS nations, including Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And before the summit, Russia outlined an alternative payment system in national BRICS currencies that would include a new messaging system and a network of national commercial banks linked to each other through the BRICS central banks. The Russian president added that the existing financial messaging system created by the Russian central bank, as well as similar systems run by other BRICS central banks, could be used to facilitate mutual payments in national currencies. G20 finance ministers on Thursday reaffirmed their desire to cooperate on taxing the super rich before a summit next month where taxes are expected to be a top priority. At a meeting of G20 finance ministers on the sidelines of the annual meetings of the International Monetary Fund and World Bank in Washington, member countries agreed to work together towards a fairer, more inclusive, stable, and efficient international tax system fit for the 21st century. At a previous meeting of finance ministers in July, G20 members pledged to cooperate to ensure that the very wealthiest are taxed more heavily in an effort to combat inequality. Instead of creating a minimum tax on the wealthiest, a compromise was reached to encourage everyone to tax them more. 3 Lebanese journalists have been killed in an Israeli airstrike on a building known to be housing reporters in southeastern Lebanon. The attack was carried out on a guest house in a compound in Hasbaya, being used by more than a dozen journalists from at least 7 media organizations, with a courtyard containing cars clearly marked with a press. Those killed were camera operator Ghassan Najjar and engineer Mohammed Radar from pro-Iranian news channel Al Mayadeen, as well as camera operator Wissam Qassem from Hezbollah-affiliated Al Manar. Lebanon's information minister said the attack was deliberate. The Israeli military has not yet commented, but has previously denied targeting a journalist. Communication with pigs may soon be possible, as scientists say they have developed an AI tool that can interpret what the animals are saying. The tool is expected to improve animal welfare. More in the following.
Do these pigs sound happy or sad? European scientists have developed an artificial intelligence algorithm capable of finding out. Their goal is to create a tool that can decode pigs' calls and update farmers on their well-being. Researchers say once fully developed, it could also be used to label farms and help consumers make informed choices. The AI algorithm was developed from thousands of pig recordings taken in different settings. What noises do they make when they play? How about when pigs are isolated or in competition for food?
So we had this huge database of calls that are produced in specific emotions, specific contexts by many different pigs and kinds of pigs and ages. And then we developed AI, so artificial intelligence that could tell us, be trained to tell us if the calls that we recorded were emotionally positive or negative.
They found that short grunts typically indicate positive emotions, while long grunts often signal discomfort.
With the explosions of AI methods, it actually becomes more and more easy to do these things.
The algorithm demonstrated that pigs kept in outdoor, free-range or organic farms with the ability to roam and dig produced fewer stress calls than conventionally raised pigs. The researchers say the information could one day be used by consumers to make informed choices.
Now, as usual, let's move on to the weather forecast. And that's all the news we have for this hour. To rewatch our program, you can download our mobile app at VTVgo or check out our YouTube channel, VTV4Go. Thank you for watching and see you next time.